From the heart of the city too busy to hate. A progressive voice making too much sense for corporate media's comfort. This is The Ron Show, where we the people come first. Here's your host, Ron Roberts.
Hi, thank you for listening. Weekdays, 8 a.m., 4 p.m. on Georgia Now, 11 p.m. Progressive Voices via TuneIn or wherever you podcast. It was yesterday afternoon, I guess around dinner time, actually, that I started getting text messages. Have you seen the pictures? Have you seen the video? Have you seen the tweets? Have you seen the retweets? Turnout at yesterday's Talking Point USA event in Athens, Georgia, near the campus of the University of Georgia. Not on it, but near it at the Athens Ford Arena. That's a brand new arena downtown Athens. Near the Athens Banner Herald and the Civic Center that they built there a couple decades ago. Anyway, the turnout has become more the story than anything. Although there was the 11th hour pullout of Turning Point CEO Erica Kirk for security reasons, we're told. Vice President J.D. Vance, though, with the Secret Service's blessing, he still went on stage. Here's the story from WXIA-TV 11 Alive.
A high-profile visit to Athens almost didn't happen. Vice President J.D. Vance took to the stage tonight after a last-minute shakeup. Vice President Vance says that threats forced key speaker Erica Kirk to back out of the event. 11 Alive's Angelina Salcido was there with what happened.
This event in Athens nearly didn't happen, with Vice President J.D. Vance telling the crowd that threats against Turning Point CEO Erica Kirk had her stay home and had organizers thinking about canceling the event hours before it began. The event, though, still continued with approval from the Secret Service, drawing a crowd of students and strong reactions, too. Vice President J.D. Vance taking the stage in Athens.
It's pretty good to be in SEC country, I have to say. It's great to be here.
Opening with a warning.
About 2 hours ago, as you know, Andrew, I was a little worried that we were going to have to cancel the event.
He tells the crowd threats against Erica Kirk kept her from attending and forced last-minute security decisions before quickly turning his focus to the next generation of voters.
And I know that politics is hard, and I know that it's challenging, and I know that things aren't always easy.
His message focused on young voters and their role in politics. But as questions open up, the conversation turned.
Hey, random dude screaming, I told you I'd respond to your point. I just want to respond to this question first.
At times heated.
The president...
On issues like the war in Gaza, the exchange quickly turning tense.
You see more humanitarian aid coming into Gaza than it has any time in the past 5 years.
The vice president pushing back.
Because we have taken that situation seriously.
He also addressed ongoing negotiations overseas, saying the U.S. is working towards a peace deal, but it's not there yet.
The reason why the deal is not yet done is because the president, he really wants a deal where Iran doesn't have a nuclear weapon.
From immigration and job competition to housing costs and global conflicts, the questions coming directly from the crowd.
What is the game plan to win the midterms?
How is the Trump administration trying to fix that?
How do you think the conservative movement can be united?
Don't give up on this process. Get more involved in this process and demand more from people like me.
With the vice president addressing key topics and taking questions straight from the students, this high-profile stop brought national politics here to Athens. Reporting in Athens tonight, Angelina Salcido, 11 Alive News.
Joining me to discuss, author of The Seven Mountains Band-Aid, exposing the dangerous plan to Christianize America and destroy democracy. Author Matthew Bodie, also professor at the University of North Georgia. Thank you so much. You actually attended this. Be honest, were there more people inside the building or outside the building protesting? Because it kind of looks like it could have been a scratch.
There was a large protest outside. I do have to say there were more people inside because obviously Turning Point does attract a certain number of students. But it was certainly a very small audience inside.
I don't know what to make of that. If this has more to do with just the loss of the luster under Erica Kirk, her sudden pullout. I mean, do you think there were those who were affected who were just like, it's just J.D.
I think
Vance?
there were several issues going on. One, I signed up for the event a couple weeks ahead of time, and they said that non-students were going to be waitlisted. So I didn't get notification that I was going to be allowed to go in until the day before. So obviously they were expecting a lot of students and hoping that they would come. But then a person like me or a person from the community or, a Trump supporter, I don't know if they were going to stand in line for hours, or that's the text that I got, that there were, lines were going to start at 11 for an event that's supposed to start at 5:30. I mean, no one's going to do that. And I think that the arena that they got obviously is very large.
Yeah.
But they had a lot of students that were larger than the smaller places. So there's some logistical issues. But yes, there's a lot of, I think, less Trump enthusiasm, and the number of students that talked to reporters there were kind of wishy-washy on some of his positions. But I do think also that clearly these events are quite different than what Charlie did. I mean, those Charlie events were on campus outside. He was sitting in a chair. You were a couple of feet from him. You could talk to him. These are large arenas. Erica's not, is not going to do a debate style thing. And JD Vance can certainly take questions for the audience, but it is not as an intimate affair, especially for young males who like that verbal debate that Charlie did. So I think there's several issues going on here, but I mean, Turning Point still has a lot going on. They're doing 4 tours right now. This one, the religious one, they have the one centered on African American students, and then they have their own campus events, the Pass the Mic tour. So they have a lot going on. So tonight may have been an outlier, but we'll see what happens at the next one.
So Athens Ford Arena holds 8,500. What would you guesstimate showed up?
I was trying to count them. So on the floor,
you were able to count.
Had 1,000 chairs for students.
Okay,
they did not fill that. So maybe 900 students, and then around the arena, you could count those by hand. So I'm guessing a total of 1,200 people.
Okay. So the Vice President of the United States, with or without Erica Kirk, on the bill, you have the Vice President of the United States, who in most situations, under most circumstances, could draw a rather large crowd to any event. This was a free ticketed event, right? I mean, this wasn't like
totally. Yes.
Yeah. I just the opportunity to speak to the President of the United States or the Vice President of the United States, you would think would be one that would draw a lot of people, period. I understand the moving of the timelines, et cetera, and so on, but it's the Vice President of the United States. I was walking back to my car after the event, and there's just students walking around, wearing UGA shirts and going to dinner. And, I'm like, did you not know there was a big event? Like, I asked myself, was there another big event on campus I was unaware of? Because this was not as they expected. Yeah. Well, and also for the University of Georgia, I don't even know. I haven't kept up with their student number. And I know it's around 30,000, maybe a little more than that. To expect.
Oh, that's just the undergraduate. Yeah, there's obviously probably about 10,000 more graduate students. So there's plenty of opportunities they could have had. Yeah.
But to expect even just 1,000 seated people in an 8,500 seat arena, that is, to me, that's 8,500 is a rather large number to expect the student population to show up and then to put everybody else on hold.
Yeah, totally. And I've been to Turning Point events before in this location. They have the large arena, but next door they have a smaller
the Classic Center, right?
It's about 1,000 maybe people. So did they overestimate the number of people they thought were coming, and they couldn't reserve that? That obviously would have been filled. I think a lot of things go into it, but I don't think that Erica pulling out was known to the people in the arena beforehand. Right. So, that certainly is an issue. But the Vice President certainly is a bigger draw than this. And so it was interesting to see that was the enthusiasm was not there.
So let's get to some of the meat and potatoes of the conversation, because the Vice President's remarks on Catholicism and the Pope weighing in and the bishops weighing in on the Iran war certainly have drawn some headlines outside of our bubble here in the state of Georgia, where turnout to me was the conversation that I was just getting buzzed. My phone was just going off the table. Oh my gosh, have you seen the photos? Have you seen the videos? The turnout was deplorable. But, some of the things that he said sort of drew some grimaces in the faith community as well. Would you want to weigh in on that?
I think he took a way different tone, obviously, than the president's in regard to the posting about the Jesus meme, and also obviously the attacks on the Pope themselves. J.D. Vance, being a Catholic, he's going to be a bit more conciliatory, but at the same time, he also is going to defend the president. So he tried to defend the president in regard to the again, the quote that the Pope said about people who wield the sword do not get their prayers answered by God. I don't think he did a good job there, because he kind of was misleading with the quotation. He kept saying this is exact words that Pope said, but there are other words that the Pope said that made it seem very clearly that people who start wars and people who fight unjust wars are the problem, not necessarily people that, as J.D. Vance said, try to free the prisoners and the Nazis. That's also wielding the sword, but the Pope mentioned wielding the sword and dropping bombs. Those are things that do not get God's blessing. So he tried to change the subject a bit. And of course, there was also a person who yelled from the crowd during the vice president's comments about Gaza, that there's genocide going on, they're killing children. And J.D. Vance handled that well. But then a couple minutes later, the vice president mocked that guy for not speaking up when they were talking about fraud in Minnesota. So you can see he's conciliatory at times, but also being sarcastic and obviously attacking Democrats and things like that. So I think that he plays the Trump card when he needs to and tries to be conciliatory when he has to.
This still has to be concerning for the GOP, whether you're MAGA or not. You have to be a little bit concerned about your prospects for the midterms and in 2028 when he's the vice president. You have to assume that he wants to run for the highest office and would be the consensus pick, but maybe not. if this is all he can draw.
I mean, we're 6 months out, and J.D. Vance is trying to unite the party around something. That is never a good sign. I mean, most of the commentary from him early on was about, I know you may disagree on this or that, but we need to be united. I mean, the unity theme was well repeated by him and Adrian Covert, the Turning Point spokesperson. So, and people in the crowd also asked those very same questions. So that is a concern from them, that they can't even get a united message. And Turning Point has already endorsed J.D. Vance for 2028. So I do think, whatever type of perhaps Democratic victory is going to happen in the fall, J.D. Vance is going to have to work hard to overcome that in the 2 years in between the two elections. So maybe now it's just a lull in his early campaign. But at the same time, there are plenty of races he could impact. Whether or not he will be impacted in them. And they brought out one of Turning Point's endorsed candidates for governor. So maybe J.D. Vance can help that person.
Well, I was just going to say, we do have the J.D. and sticking with his endorsement, as did the president so far with Burt Jones, although the trajectory on that doesn't look good. J.D. Vance seems to have the reverse Midas touch when it comes to showing up to support causes and candidacies. Ask the people in Hungary, for example. It's all just kind of wild to watch from the outside, but I mean, there you were in the flesh, and to watch the awkwardness of it all.
Yes, it was very awkward because in an arena when it's not filled and not filled to this lack of capacity, the microphones kind of echo a little bit.
Yes.
So when Burt Jones came out, you could just, it wasn't a terrible echo, but you could just and they kept doing, the dog chant. Oh, we can do better than that. And that's always a sign that you need to get people to, to yell louder. Yeah.
I can't stand it when anybody does that. Let me hear you. No, that's not good enough. No, come on, stop it. Let's get right to it here. Yeah, that's not good.
The hype guys had a lot of work for themselves. Yeah.
Did you get a sense from the audience that they too were aware this was a lead balloon?
I didn't talk to a lot of students. I did read some reports of people interviewing students. And I will say, just from my vantage point, there were a lot of more female students in the crowd, and I'm not suggesting they're non-enthusiastic, but at the same time, they were there for Erica and not necessarily for J.D. Vance. So when Erica was not announced, or it was announced that she was not there because of threats, I do think it changed the tone of the meeting, if you will, or tone of the event. So that being said, there are still lots of students there, about 900 students, and they were enthusiastic. They were given free hats and T-shirts, and everybody had a poster to hang up. They took a big picture. The people that were there seemed to have a good time.
Okay, so the makeup of the audience was, for the size that it was decidedly pro TP USA and not,
totally.
Folks there
the entire crowd booed the guy who interrupted the vice president. So, it was totally a pro Turning Point crowd. The protesters were outside.
Gotcha. All right, good. Well, listen, man, I appreciate you giving me the update. When I saw that you went, I was like, let me reach out to this guy and see if I can't get some insights into this. It's a fascinating snapshot at a time when, I don't know. After Charlie's passing, I was the sort of person who was a little worried about the martyrization of him and how this movement was going to impact youth voter sentiment and turnout in this country. And I'm not celebrating yesterday's turnout being what it was. I look at it as a snapshot and wonder, with the midterm looking the way it does, with polls looking the way they do, we've got important state elections here in the state of Georgia. Who has momentum? Who doesn't? This is, to me, just like a temperature check on momentum, and it seems pretty clear that momentum is not on their side with any demographic right now.
I don't think this is just a turning point issue, no doubt. It's a Trump issue and a larger Republican issue. But on the martyrdom question, I mean, you could sense they're still trying to talk about Charlie as much as possible, but also talk about the news of the day, and that's hard to do. Yeah,
that's for sure. All right, Matthew Bodie, author of The Seven Mountains Mandate: Exposing the Dangerous Plan to Christianize America and Destroy Democracy. Thanks for joining the Ron Show this morning. I appreciate it.
All right, thanks. Bye.
Burt Jones was there, the lieutenant governor, getting that endorsement, I guess, solidified.
Hey everybody, Burt Jones here with a wonderful Vice President, J.D. Vance. Vice President, appreciate you being here today.
Yeah, man, we love Georgia. We love Burt Jones. Get out there and vote for him starting here in a couple weeks, but he's going to be the next governor of Georgia. We're going to help him. Thank you.
Yeah, that is the kiss of death. I mean, J.D. Vance showing up to seal up the endorsement has not exactly been a good sign of things to come for candidates or causes in the near future. Burt Jones, by the way, did tweet something about the perceived threats that Erica Kirk faced. It was on the Twitter X platform where Burt wrote, "The radical left has sunk so low they're targeting a grieving mother whose husband was assassinated on a college campus. For daring to speak conservative truth, it is shameful and it is despicable. Georgia stands with Erica Kirk, TPUSA, and with Vice President J.D. Vance in Athens tonight as they bring courage and common sense back to our campuses." A, the event wasn't on the campus. B, the turnout says that it didn't exactly go as planned to bring courage and common sense anywhere. But also the threat to Erica Kirk, and yet the Secret Service signed off on the event. Vice President J.D. Vance went on stage. I mean, J.D. Vance addressed this and said something along the lines of this having to do with more with her traveling, I guess, from the airport to the venue. Come on. I don't want to get into a part where I'm just being openly dismissive of anything that comes out of his mouth or TPUSA's mouth, but come on. Between the Georgia State Patrol, Athens Clark Police, you can't tell me that they don't have the ability to ensure safe passage. I mean, this is not a third world country. This is not Bogota, for crying out loud. It's Athens, Georgia. Not buying that for 1 second. That was just a face-saving 11th hour decision to not show up to an empty arena. It's the Ron Show. Georgia Now, Progressive Voice via TuneIn, wherever you podcast. It gets weirder and weirder with each conservative pundit that you start adding to the list of MAGA and TPUSA detractors. I mean, here we are finding ourselves in agreement sometimes, I guess, with the likes of Tucker Carlson, Ann Coulter, Erickson, and Candace Owens, who really wasn't buying into the Erica Kirk pullout at the last minute. Erica taking to the Twitter X platform to say, I was so looking forward to tonight's event at the University of Georgia. It wasn't at the University of Georgia, with our vice president. But after all our family has been through, I take my security team's recommendations extremely seriously. Thank you to our amazing Georgia chapter for your support. God bless you. Candace Owens responding, stop. This is exhausting. You pulled out because of bad ticket sales. Candace, there were no sales. It was free. For the same reason, TP Faith had to, quote, reschedule the Pastor's Summit and various other events quietly. People don't believe you and don't line up for you because you struggle to tell the truth about even the most basic facts. This is fascinating when conservative pundits want to call out others for not, aligning with basic facts. Anyway, she continues, where is the video of Charlie appointing you as CEO weeks before his death? The Secret Service sits above your security team. Were there actually a viable threat, the vice president would not have continued the event. Your closest threat is the public relations team you hired that continues to operate under the delusion that they are smarter than the public. They aren't, she said. Speaking of Erickson, he took to Twitter X yesterday. I think this was well before we saw the disastrous turnout, but still, he knows that MAGA is losing its luster and the rats are coming off the sinking ship, because he tweeted this: I just got to say that I would be far wealthier had I done the MAGA impersonation so many others have done, but holy hell am I glad I don't have to beclown myself on a daily basis to prove my loyalty to keep the gravy train going. At some point, Trump goes, and all these people are going to have to reinvent themselves yet again to hitch their carts to a new gravy train. I'm embarrassed for them and handling the Jesus tweet, etc. I'm sure they sleep well on their cash, but you can only suppress your sense of shame for so long. Actually, I'm going to take a quick break and come back and give you some more Eric Erickson, who believes that there are all sorts of signs. He sees them like we do. These elections wins, narrow wins, and key losses that shows Republicans are in for a drubbing. He offered that as an op-ed in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. I saw they just took their $12.99 out of my bank account last night, so I'm going to put that to work when the Ron Show returns on Georgia Now, Progressive Voice of you. Tune in.
This is the Ron Show.
And I've talked for the last few days about the televised and live stream Georgia Democratic gubernatorial debate taking place tonight with the three, 11 Live is calling them leading candidates of the six that are running. They are basing that on the Emerson poll that was conducted in February. The information got to us March 5th with a smaller likely voter pool than the most recent poll by 2020 Insight provided us nearly a month after, which would have had at least one different candidate than the top three perceived candidates from the poll that was done in February. I mean, it's April 15th. Oh my God, it's tax day. It's April 15th, right? It's been 2.5 months since that poll was drawn, and yet WXI TV 11 Live has decided we're only going to invite the top three from a poll that was done 2.5 months ago for that televised debate tonight. Here is 11 Live promoting that this morning.
Next month, voters across Georgia will be heading to the polls to vote in the May primary, narrowing down candidates in some key races for governor, lieutenant governor, secretary of state, and even more. Well, tonight at 7, 11 Alive is hosting a key debate in the race for governor. It will feature the three leading Democratic candidates as determined by the nonpartisan Emerson poll. You can watch it live tonight on our sister station, the ATL, or you can stream it for free on 11 Alive Plus. There will be special coverage before and after the debate on 11 Alive Plus. Now, 11 Alive also invited the Republican candidates to a debate ahead of the May vote.
Okay, so again, they're going with a poll that was done 2.5 months ago with fewer likely voters than the most recent poll, and have different folks in the top three there. But anyway, the one who is notably absent from this is the one who is, according to the 2020 Insight poll, the most recent poll, in second place. By a whisker, but still in second place. Of course, within the margin of error, you've got three candidates who are all within reach of each other. So perhaps if WXI TV 11 Live had done this poll, they'd have had the top four candidates at minimum. But nonetheless, former state senator Jason Estevez not invited to the conversation tonight. So he has decided to do something on his own.
A lot of you have been asking, why am I not participating in the televised debate that's happening on Wednesday? And the truth of the matter is that campaigns have changed a lot in the last few years, and traditional media hasn't always kept up with the way that they cover us. The most recent polling shows that we are in second place. That momentum is clearly on our side. That's where things stand right now in April. Yet 11 Alive is not going to allow us to participate because they are relying on a poll from February. That doesn't make sense to me. I'm sure it doesn't make sense to you either. But let's be real. I'm running because the old ways of doing things aren't working, and traditional media hasn't always kept up with that. So here's what we're going to do. We need a new generation of leadership to address the chaos and dysfunction that's coming out of Washington, D.C., whether it's Donald Trump or my opponents right here in Georgia. And I'll be taking that message directly to voters Wednesday night. So I want you to join us on Instagram Live, where I'm going to answer questions asked by a few creators and your questions. So if you have them, drop them in the comments below, and I look forward to addressing them.
Jason posting that to his social media apparatus. So that's the alternative, if you wish. Listen, we know that the overwhelming majority of the state of Georgia is not going to be tuned in to watching either the live stream debates or Jason. We know, I mean, the Braves are playing, right? I'm sure they're playing at 7 o'clock. That's where more eyes will be on than on. But nonetheless, it's just, it shouldn't come to that. You know what I mean? It shouldn't come to having to decide between watching a debate with three top tier, I'm using air quotes here, finger air quotes, candidates, and then a fourth of the top tier. Again, these polls, there's three of them. They've been done so disparately. We don't have crosstabs. We don't know geography. Who knows what to make? I just think it's irresponsible for WXIA TV 11 Live to decide for themselves and for all of us who the top three candidates are in the Georgia Democratic gubernatorial primary. And I think it's irresponsible for them to partake in a broadcast where they are potentially influencing how voters perceive who has a viability in winning that primary. Now, speaking of viability, conservative pundit, radio syndicated host Eric Erickson, who is Georgia-based, history at WSB Radio here in Atlanta, lives down in the Macon area. He doesn't think that the GOP brand is very viable in the midterms, writing for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, that he believes narrow election wins, key losses show that Republicans are in for a drubbing. That's the headline. I paid my $12.99 a month. By the way, support the show, ronshowatl.com. If you want to help out with a little, I don't know, a cup of coffee, a lunch, or you just say, hey, you just spent $13 for an AJC subscription. I'll donate $13. By all means, ronshowatl.com. I do that. I pay for the New York Times. I do all of these subscriptions so that I have access to these stories and op-ed writings that I can share with you when I find them to be relevant. Eric writing, one wonders how many warning signs Republicans need to see that they have a problem in Georgia and nationally. First line, and I already want to come off with comments. Republicans have known for a long time that they have problems with the American public politically. They choose not to alter their ideology in any way, shape, form, or fashion, or how they go about doing things politically when they know that their brand is unpopular with Americans. Not just their brand, but their ideology. They don't alter that in any way, shape, form, or fashion. What they do is they alter the impact American voters have. It's why they support the Electoral College when they know that they haven't won but, 2 popular votes since 1988? That they have to gerrymander to diffuse, to dilute voter sentiment? That they hastily blocked a Supreme Court nomination for President Barack Obama on the way out, and then by the completely altered logic from that decision, hastily sat another Supreme Court justice for Donald Trump on his way out? Republicans don't care what the American voter thinks. They only care when the American voter can impact their preferred politicians. And even then, we've seen this calendar year where their president and state leaders in places like Indiana and Texas, Florida, have been working hard, working double time, overtime, to mid-decade gerrymander, just completely creating something out of thin air, nothing constitutional about it, to alter what they see coming. What polls show is their comeuppance. And instead of leaning into democracy, they're leaning into rigging. Again, Eric Erickson writing, one wonders how many warning signs Republicans need to see that they have a problem in Georgia and nationally. Again, the last 40, 50 years would tell you you've got a problem, but the GOP doesn't wish to address it by altering their ideology or accepting that water is wet, the sky is blue, summer is warm. On April 7th, they got another warning sign, Eric writes. Former Floyd County District Attorney Clay Fuller won the special election to replace Marjorie Taylor Greene in the 14th Congressional District. The problem is he won by 12 points. In 2024, Donald Trump won that same district by 37 points. Republicans have a voter enthusiasm problem. Nope, not a political ideology problem. A voter enthusiasm problem. In Middle Georgia, State Senator Stephen McNeil won in a February special election runoff, but the race was closer than it should have been. In December, Democratic Representative Eric Gissler won a special election for a state house seat designed to be a Republican seat. Did you hear Eric say that? He admitted it's designed to be a Republican seat. Republicans don't like democracy. He won because Republicans did not turn out. Not because the Republican Party is dead wrong on so many issues and that their economic and tax policy have led to record wealth inequality and lack of opportunity. Nope, that's not it. It's enthusiasm for what Republicans do. That's the problem. Eric continues, in November of last year, 2 Democrats won races for the Public Service Commission. Again, Democrats more enthusiastically turned out than Republicans. It's excitement for the candidates that Democrats have the advantage in. Not ideology, just enthusiasm. Eric continues, in Fuller's case, Republicans have been making some excuses. His runoff election happened during spring break for parts of the district, but that does not excuse the anemic early vote totals. Given the timing, the GOP should have emphasized early voting. Oh, they don't like early voting now, suddenly here in Georgia, though, remember? Republicans also say the party was so divided that many of Fuller's special election opponents from the GOP were hoping he would lose. There is the scepter of Colton Moore, right? Anyway, Eric continues. There is another election in May for the Republican primary where many of Fuller's special election opponents are on the ballot against him there, too. That perhaps is the fairest argument. But it still does not fully explain such anemic turnout. The problem for Republicans, is he going to get to it? The problem for Republicans is that the turnout pattern is playing out nationally. The GOP lost a solid Texas legislative seat outside Fort Worth a few months ago. That district saw a 17-point swing toward the Democrats. The pattern has held up from Florida to New York. Historically, this pattern is a harbinger of doom for the party that holds the White House. One mitigating factor for Republicans in Georgia is that congressional midterm elections coincide with Georgia's statewide races. Some states will not have a unified operation to turn out the vote. Georgia will have a gubernatorial contest in November, along with both the United States Senate race and other statewide races. Both the Republican National Committee and the State Republican Party, along with outside groups, will work hard to maximize turnout. Democrats will do the same. Eric continues. One downside for the GOP is the increasingly bitter gubernatorial primary between lead contenders Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones and billionaire executive Rick Jackson. If that race gets too nasty, he's a little late there. If that race gets too nasty, either losing candidate could see their supporters less than enthusiastic in the general election. Then there is the president. He keeps giving his supporters reason for exasperation. In just the last week, he dropped an F-bomb on Easter while praising Allah, declared the destruction of an entire civilization was coming, attacked the Pope, then pushed out a picture of himself as Jesus healing the sick that he later deleted and said he thought was him as a doctor. Numerous Trump supporters want the president to delete his social media accounts and are frustrated by the president's lack of discipline. That will play into a general election with motivated Democrats and unenthusiastic Republicans, Eric opines. The Republicans have held the 14th district. It would be a terrible sign if they did not, but the swing in the special election to the Democrats should bother them, he says. The Republican turnout efforts are not working well. Not policies now. He's not even talking about policies or the president's and his inner circle's lack of preparation or foresight into knowing how the Iranian war was going to turn out. No, it's about the party's turnout efforts. He's blaming the campaign and the party for their turnout efforts, not record gas prices, affordability not being dealt with. No, it's the turnout effort. Back to Eric. The state legislature should be safe. But the GOP is already fretting, losing more seats in metro Atlanta. Governor Brian Kemp is exiting office, and his machine, without him leading it, will be less potent. No statewide Republican has shown an ability to mobilize voters like Kemp has done. Perhaps the best thing the GOP in Georgia has going for it right now is the Democratic Party. The Democrats are hungry for a win, but lack a real bench. I don't know that he's right about that either. Likewise, as the GOP has drifted into an exurban and rural party, the Democrats have consolidated, even in Georgia, as an urban progressive party, less aligned with the state as a whole. I'm going to push back on that in a little bit. That will not last. However, Democrats will get hungry enough for a win that they will shed ideological alignments that put them out of step with voters. Disagree with that as well. We'll talk on that in a few. Let me let him finish. The once mighty Republican monopoly in Georgia, like all monopolies, will turn sclerotic if it does not come up with fresh ideas to motivate its voters. Not fresh policy ideas, just fresh ideas to motivate voters. I'm sorry, Eric, but I got to be honest. This is not about free sandwiches. Oh, we can't do that. Or delicious beverages. Oh, we can't do that either. At the polling places, this is not about enthusiasm for a brand, and that's the problem. The GOP has relied on that Trump derangement syndrome. That they actually think liberals have Trump derangement syndrome when we're not the ones showing up dressed as if we were going to a rock concert. It's that the GOP has relied on that enthusiasm so much that the ideology part has escaped their grasp in this Trump decade. I mean, don't get me wrong. They've been wrong on issues for most of my life and refuse to accept facts and math and data and science because they all have, liberal biases, right? But enthusiasm isn't the problem. Results are the problem. And the results speak for themselves. And it's so cut and dried, so easy for voters to see the problem, the source of the problem. Americans have finally realized, oh my God, we elected a wholly unqualified individual to run this country, and we did it again. And that party let us do it, enthusiastically wanted us to do it. That's the problem. That is the problem. And the GOP is going to spend some time between now and November pretending that that's not the case, and then watch what happens when they lose the House, and if they lose the Senate, and if they lose governorships in perceived red states like Georgia. Watch as more rats get off that sinking ship, as Eric talked about in that tweet that I read earlier in this segment. Watch as the GOP make a complete marketability shift. Not ideological, but watch as Donald Trump becomes the most irrelevant lame duck president in modern history at the hands of his own party. Just watch. Got a little bit more to say about this. We'll do that when the Ron Show returns on Georgia Now, Progressive Voice via TuneIn, wherever you podcast. So it was a couple of things that Eric said in that op-ed that I want to focus on for the last 5 minutes here. Perhaps the best thing the GOP in Georgia has going for it right now is the Democratic Party. The Democrats are hungry for a win, but lack a real bench. I would argue, what bench does the GOP have? Is he looking at Colton Moore, Marjorie Taylor Greene in male form? Is he looking at Greg Dolezal or Houston Gaines? Houston Gaines might be the closest thing to Brian Kemp that the GOP has, but both Gaines and Greg Dolezal make the same mistake that he talks about, or Eric Erickson does in the next line, where he goes, likewise, as the GOP has drifted into an exurban and rural party, yes, and when you have Houston Gaines and Greg Dolezal attacking Atlanta and Fulton County and trying to hamstring their ability to address homelessness, or that, oh my gosh, somebody was registered to vote and their registration address had this church, happens to be Reverend Warnock's church, that's not going to grow your base inside the blue bubbles. That's just more of that dog whistling. I would also argue, however, that Democrats have a really good, viable bench. And it's why, for me, they would do well to look at them and grow them, to lift them up. It's why I've decided Jason Estevez is my guy. I can't go for names and voices from the past. And I pay particular attention to what Erickson says when he says Democrats will get hungry enough for a win that they will shed ideological alignments that put them out of step with voters. I know what he's trying to say. He's not alluding to Jeff Duncan. No, that is an old rhubarb there. Well, see, Democrats are not talking about trans issues anymore. Democrats never were. Republicans were. Democrats were just caught flat-footed and didn't know what to say, actually. And it wasn't in the party platform to uplift trans participation in sports or anything like that. It was just not on anyone's radar except Republicans who just seem fixated on it for some reason. I mean, it's statistically irrelevant. No, but I actually think that there is something about Democrats who are hungry enough for a win that they will shed ideological alignments that put them out of step with their own voters. We're seeing it happening with endorsements for Jeff Duncan. And I get it. Jeff Duncan himself shed an ideological alignment. And I've said many times now in the last few weeks, I believe him. And to a larger degree, I believe that there are a lot more Republican politicians and voters who are actually like Jeff Duncan, in that there's more preening and posturing to appease a base to curry favor with the NRA or evangelicism or donors, but to their core know that Republican ideology doesn't solve anything. It just wins elections in key places, and especially if they keep drawing lines on maps that ensure that that's going to happen. That's the gravy train Eric Erickson should be speaking about. And also, Eric, this is not an urban, suburban versus ex-urban rural situation either. I mean, a simple look at the Georgia map will tell you Democrats do well in Hancock County. They do well in Baldwin County. They do well in Warren County. They do well in Washington County, Jefferson County. They do well in Burke County. They do fine in Terrell County. They do fine in Randolph County, Dougherty County. Oh, Dougherty, I think, is Albany, so I guess that doesn't count. Calhoun County, for crying out loud. Stewart County, Liberty. Are you hearing major? No. Talbot County, for crying out loud. Muskogee County. Those are not large metropolitan areas. Those are not metro Atlanta counties that I just reeled off. I reeled off mostly rural counties. They happen to be majority minority, most of them. And again, that goes back to another problem Republicans always have that they don't wish to address, they wish to suppress. And that is an issue that they have with their party ideology not jibing with Hispanic and African-American voters, who they would rather suppress the vote of than listen to the needs of. Now, to his point that Democrats don't have a deep bench, what we don't have are pandering showwomen. We do have a good bench in State Senator Josh McLaren running for lieutenant governor. We've had up and down the show and up and down the dial, we've had candidates who are running for congressional seats throughout the state of Georgia who are good candidates. They may not win, but they're good candidates. The Democratic Party bench in Georgia is fine. Don't let Eric Erickson fool you. And the fact that you've got a Senate incumbent Democrat who is, by the way, fundraising record, $14 million in the first quarter of 2026, who is, in Georgia, you almost hate to say a sure shot, but find me a poll that says that he's not. Senator John Ossoff is not only something of right now a lock in the U.S. Senate for 2026, the Senate is in play. The Senate is in play for a potential flip. Nobody thought that was possible 18 months ago. Nobody. In the throes of the 2024 election cycle, everybody said, if you think this is bad, 2026 is going to be grim for Democrats with the Senate. It's going to get even worse. And now the Senate is potentially in play. Democrats listen to voters. Affordability was a key issue in 2024, and they're ready to address it. And all the Trump administration has been focused on is demonizing immigrants, going to war with Iran. They haven't touched affordability. It's DEI this, woke that, attacking the media and shuttering government institutions that they never liked to begin with. Good luck with that. It's The Ron Show. Georgia Now, Progressive Voice via TuneIn, wherever you podcast. Show notes, as always, at ronshowatl.com.